We're off to a little heater. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to get the energy going. I want to get everything rocking and rolling. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got an absolutely stacked crew. My name is Sanjay Jenkins. I'm the head of growth over at Replo, and I've got quite the cast of characters for you today. I'm joined as a co-host by Francesco Gatti. He's the CEO of OpenSend. And our two guests today are absolute legends in e-com. We jammed with them earlier, and they were just telling me some insane stories. And that's going to translate into incredible Black Friday, Cyber Monday learnings that you're going to be able to deploy, regardless of what business you run this year. I've got Bill Hudak, who's the former VP of e-commerce from Dollar Shave Club. He left just recently in August. He's an absolute killer. There's so many cool things you're going to learn from him. And Andrew Winter runs all things AI over at True Classic Tees. You know him, you've heard of him, you're probably wearing one of their shirts. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on here with us.
Dude, I'm
So
pumped.
good
Thank you
beer.
for having us.
All right. So I wanna, like just kind of set the stage for everyone before we jump right in. The goal of this program is very simply to take the learnings that these legends have and pass them on to you. There's a bit of translation. We want to make sure that stuff that they've seen, running these 9-10 figure brands actually apply to you. But there's a lot of really great ideas that these guys have seen and they've worked on over the course of their careers. This is supposed to be a tactical experience. This isn't just like some dudes pontificating for an hour. This is a tactical thing, and more critically, this is an interactive thing. So the chat is there for a reason. Use it to drop in questions. We'll be pulling in throughout, and then we'll definitely have time at the end for more Q&A. So without further ado, I want to kick it off. Turn it over to Francesco to get us started here today.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Sanjay. And look, guys, the first thing I want to start with, it's kind of like, what are the mass dues that you need to lock in by October 31st every year in order to make sure that no matter what, you're going to kill it during your Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Very open.
Bill,
that
you want to
that
kick us off?
question?
What's the must do, man?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about BFCM, the key is really how I'm segmenting for new and existing customers. And then we all know that one of the big motions that happens during this time is people buy themselves gifts or, discounting purchasing for yourself. And then also, the obvious gifting. But I think if we think of BFCM as all just like gifting, you're gonna miss the boat, right? So you have to figure out how you provide something unique in this time for your audience. Everyone's expecting discounts, so there is a benefit here where you can be really aggressive on promotions and discounts without running the risk of like diluting your MSRP, your MRP, your brand, etc.
Yeah.
Everyone's expecting it. And then volume in general goes up. Internet traffic 25%, purchase activity up 25%, conversion rates go up. So, I call it the big freaky cash machine. So you better be ready to go out and grab it. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
Big
I
freaky
mean,
cash machine. I love it. Andrew,
That's what
tell
it
us,
is.
man.
yeah. I mean, this is my first BFCM with True Classic, so like I'm pretty pumped to listen to a bunch of what Bill has to say. But for us, like it's just so much preparation, and like it's really a marathon, not a sprint. Like it's not one day, and I think customers now, like people are doing so many things that like I think it's just about being really engaged for the entire period and really locking in. So like we're looking forward to it. It's our Super Bowl, and I think we're gonna hopefully have some good things to share today.
Totally. And kind of what are some don'ts that you guys are still seeing, smart teams tripping on it and things that you recommend you shouldn't do in order to ensure successful Black Friday, Cyber Monday?
Andrew,
I'll
you
go.
lead this one off. Yeah.
I'll go first. I mean, I think like the big one for us and really where I spend the most time is on like the owned channels. So sort of like separate from paid. I'll let Bill maybe speak some more of that. But I think like not really spending a bunch of time looking at your lists before the FCM, I think is something that still people maybe overlook. And I think for us, it really is like, are we sending and giving people the right period before BFCM, which I think is very important. Like I don't think you want to treat that period before not just like every other week. It actually is a good way to prep your list. I think a lot of the things that we've been looking at is like, are there people who are either people that we've suppressed or that went through some sort of sunset flow that actually like we want to re-engage with, and like how are we thinking about bringing people back through BFCM? That's one thing I think we're spending a lot of time on.
Yeah, for me, I think that if you don't look at last year, distribution, new versus returning, what channels were performing, what types of products, is it bundling, is it, gift offers, is it, like if you don't do a close analysis to figure out what you've learned from last year, then you're in big trouble. I think most people are probably doing that. But I'll mention two things relative to Dollar Shave. The core business model for companies like Dollar Shave is to get subscriptions. Guess what? No one buys subscriptions for themselves or others it's really just not a BFCM motion. And we're also operating in a relatively low AOV product. So how much, can you discount? And also if you discount too far on the beginning of a subscription offer, you'll have higher churn, right? You'll get lower quality, lower interest, people who churn out right away. And then the other, it can work, it cannot work. The biggest risk slash danger is packaging like a gift bundle where you're paying for packaging, putting it together. I love the way it looks. I love to promote it, but if you're stuck with that inventory in January, ooh, ouch.
Yeah, that's a
One
great
well,
point.
before we like continue on, one of the things that like popped up in the chat was, you know, you guys have both kind of mentioned brands that have some historicals to look at. How do you change, or like how do you think about these things? What you just said differently if you're a completely new brand, this is your first BFCM, you don't have too much data to go off of.
For me, I'd look back the last few months. I'd really want to understand when it comes to site traffic and visitors, my distribution between new and returning. I think that's absolutely key. And also your product mix. It really depends on like what your inventory looks like. Maybe the person who asked the little data question could give us a category hypothetical, diversity of SKUs. But and then I think it's key also to cater your offer again to new versus returning. And then if you're a new brand and you have a boatload of new customers, then that's where to focus in terms of like how many people are coming. I think the other thing for new brands too is even though conversion rate goes up, you could see 2, 3, I've seen 5x traffic, right, in the BFCM weeks. And even if conversion's up, 2x in the period, imagine that. You're also going to have abandoned browse, abandoned cart up, right? So really getting those flows tight for your abandons, whether it's a new offer promo. I think one of the most effective promos is, SMS based, before you go, we'll send you the offer and then, work on a new customer offer in advance of that and tighten up your operation now so that when you apply dollar scale traffic to it, you can reap the maximum benefits.
And be one thing that we're seeing at OpenSend with like, a lot of customers, it's just a matter of now consumers are changing devices or changing browsers more and more often, right? So you find a lot of customers that were buying from you last year on Black Friday, and now this year they already bought an iPhone 17. So when they come on your site, you don't even
Yeah.
know who they are. And by being able to use an identity resolution solution, we're essentially able to inform you around what is the new browser, the new device that an existing customer has been using, in order for you to be able to send them an SMS or an email, or in any way to be able to retarget them. Anyway, and we feel like that's kind of a key to not lose the signal. And maybe Andrew can speak a little bit about that, considering he's a power user of
Yeah, yeah.
his stuff.
Well, I mean, I love that. You also brought up something that like I wanted to mention because like really like I come from the technology side and I'm more thinking about the data. So like if this is your first, BFCM, I think I would keep in mind that you want to really be clear about what baselines you're establishing for next year for your second BFCM, and like what are the things that you're going to care to look back on. And a lot of that, to your point, comes around like, are we getting the right customer or visitor data? And I think that's obviously where OpenSend helps us understand those visitor paths a little bit better. But even things around the data of like how do you present yourself on BFCM that is maybe unique? Like if this is an opportunity for you to maybe treat BFCM as like a coming out party, how are you going to stand out from other brands that like, they have a playbook? You get to kind of like reinvent the wheel a little bit here and maybe take some bets that other brands won't do because they have that playbook. So like, I think if you can use it as a chance to experiment, but again, like do that where you're tracking what metrics you care about and can like then establish the baseline as you go forward into 2026 and so on.
One really fun
So,
question that popped up, which in the chat, which is like kind of the opposite of this, which is like, what if you're likely to sell out of a ton of stuff, going into Black Friday? And Brian, who asked a question, had questions or was just wondering around,
Yeah.
should we offer pre-ordering? Should we just shut things off? Like, how do you trade? How do you guys think about that conceptually?
Uh, oh, go ahead, Andrew.
I was gonna say we don't do a ton of pre-ordering. I think we know that pretty well in advance. I think more of it is around like presentation and like recommendations. So like being dynamic about what the customer on the site is seeing based off of what the inventory is available and sort of driving them towards the next purchase with our inventory in mind. But all of that I think we're pretty well prepared for in advance, and I think uh, you kind of have to start there. But Bill, what do you think?
I'm gonna tell Brian to raise his prices. Supply and demand, bro. Um, no, I actually think pre-order can be effective. If you sell out and you're collecting emails for notifications, I think those are really effective. In general, also if you're collecting any whatever zero party data. So for people who aren't up on zero party, so many little terminology and whatever. But like if I'm doing a quiz like with Digio and I'm getting someone to, on Dollar Shave, we use Digio. Are you shaving your legs, your face, your body, man, woman, whatever? Do you have,
Yeah.
razor burn, whatever? Any opportunity to augment, even if you're selling out, what products are you interested in? Again, depends on what types of products you're selling. But zero party and user identified segmentation is one of the most effective forms of segmentation if you can get it. And if you're getting it in a way that's not risking conversion, then thumbs up.
and Bill, there is something that you said last week that really caught my attention, which was that at some point you got to give up the margins in order to be able to provide still the right products and the right speed in terms of delivery to customers and to kind of like turn the fire hose into Amazon or other marketplaces. If you can um,
Bill's
zoom in a little
specific
bit on that.
bar, we have
Okay.
for the class, we have a chat, or we have a little doc that we keep a lot of
Mhm.
notes of like everyone's bars, and the specific bar was brand promise, not just profits.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so the year before last, I had actually, right before I joined Dollar Shave, we had done, well, one of the things that's key we'll have to talk about too is shipping cutoff dates.
Yeah.
If it's gifting specifically for Christmas, um, letting your customers know when they need to purchase in order to have that gift under the tree. I think that's key. And then Dollar Shave in 24 actually did an option on a landing page all during BFCM, which was a buy with Prime option. So that our traffic, we're sending customers to Amazon for specific products. We had just launched new electrics products. And one of the really interesting things we found there was that the overall conversion of the page went up, right? So we got additional conversions by merchandising buy with Prime. And then we also got more conversions to our direct website customer behavior. And then we also heavily merchandise in SMS and flows and email and campaigns that it's not too late. Most places in the US you can get 2-day shipping on Buy with Prime if you still need one of our products. And it's a little miracle on 34th Street. It's just like if I don't have what you got, go across the street. And I think it's a really good time to establish, some augment your brand identity, your brand promise, and really do what you can to meet the user's needs. And I think that's always a win.
Yeah, we do
That's
something
awesome.
similar on the like it's not too late idea. Like I think that is really where we lean on Amazon as well, and we'll push that through email, especially if we're finding either historically lapsed customers or those that have been less likely to purchase on the site. Like if they're happier to make the purchase on Amazon and we have time to ship them that product, like we'll send them there for sure.
That's awesome. And one thing that I believe it's obviously more challenging for up and coming brands that are, figuring out which are their hero products, which are the long tail products, which are the add-on upsell and so on. Like, what's kind of your rule of thumb in terms of like being able to forecast, like, the type of demand that you're going to experience during these big promotion days for the different products in your catalog?
Sending it to me. It's interesting. Dollar Shave, there's a very consistent relationship between the volume of SKUs over time. The
Yeah.
anomalies that you see during BFCM, like specifically for Dollar Shave, like electrics, right? That's not a subscription product, that's a one-time product. See a disproportionate move to electrics, and then a disproportionate move to, things like handles and other, where most likely on the handle scenario, you're actually selling a new handle to an existing customer. So in 2020, what year is it for? Um, we launched a LTO handle that was actually in a gift package as in a gift box. And so we had the LTO, this electric blue heavy metal handle, looked like ice, super cool. So the gift did okay, but the handles went ape shit because it's like, oh, I've been shaving with the same stuff. I'm a regular customer, whatever. Oh, look at this cool ass handle in a different color. It catches my eye. I'm interested, and we're promoting it, discounting it, and we sold a ton of those things. So again, I think that's really segmenting your audience versus new and existing. So if I'm an existing customer, what would be the next most likely thing I would purchase? And again, really depends on what your category slash product mix is.
Yeah, I mean, I like the for us we're pretty similar. Like most people that come to True Classic are buying t-shirts. It's kind of the front door. Um, for BFCM, like one because it's over the course of multiple days. Like you can switch your offer kind of over the course of a few days and see what's working. But the other thing I would just add that is kind of fun is you can kind of use the gift with purchase as the gift for the gifter. Like if you're buying someone something on Black Friday, you can actually use the gift with purchase as like treat yourself. And I think that ends up being a nice combo package where you're sort of helping the gifter feel good about also getting something for themselves throughout that purchase process.
That's awesome. And how do you balance kind of like to create some suspense and create prepare them to the promotion versus like anticipate the promotion and do like Friday a few week earlier, and just start discounting earlier in order to be able to capture more versus there are other brands that prefer to get get sequences out, get SMS out, and so on in order to prep customers until the day of Black Friday versus like in anticipation of the discount.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
can't speak to what we did last year. Like this goes back to kind of like the first point would just be like making sure that customers and prospects are prepared for what's coming. Like people know that the sale is coming, and we're pretty open about the fact that like you'll be able to sort of purchase with a discount at True Classic on BFCM. But I think like it's about getting people excited about why True Classic over sort of all of the other brands that are
Right.
going to be doing that same thing. So I think really like presenting the gift mentality, and I think to the extent that you can differentiate whether it's on the offer or on like why come to the site because if you go to True Classic right now, you'll see actually like a new experience of weekly deals, which is both constrained to the time window, but also like inventory limited. And so things that sort of get you to come to the site to see what's new today of BFCM versus tomorrow versus the next day. And I think driving that engagement ends up being the way to
And
sort of
there are
back.
That's also, and the recommendation for these deals is to go from like 10%, 20%, 30%, and 50% on Black Friday, or kind of like how do you recommend emerging brands to time it in a way that you don't give it all away right away, but you're still creating some sort of engagement over time.
I'm always conscious of sort of training people to expect a bigger discount down the road. So like I'm a little bit hesitant to recommend that sort of like staggered approach. I think more it's about like the presentation of what's on sale now versus what's going to be on sale. It's actually like a product presentation method. But that, I mean, like again, like I think we'll do that, and then I think before BFCM we'll actually sort of have like a calm before the storm.
Yeah, I think the other option too is if you do 12 days of deals or, whatever deal week, where you're featuring a single product at a deep discount
Yeah,
and, you can warm up the life cycle, say, hey, we're going to drop these discounts 10 days in a row, whatever days in a row, starting on whatever day, come back to the site every day and see like one, super discounted, exciting product. And then your opportunity there, if you discount hard, is to really work those upsells and cross sells.
Totally. Question from Marine. He's asking how long, how much earlier than Black Friday you should be using identification software to collect data that you can then deploy. The reality is that it's never too late, right? Every day matters, even more so if you have traffic, and then obviously if you can load the list, and then everybody's kind of in watch mode now, waiting to understand what they want, and then kind of buy it in a few weeks. So yeah, it's never
Yeah,
too late, right?
it's never too late to test, but I will say you want to test early. I would personally minimize the number of like tests you're running, both from like an offer perspective, but also like new technology, like the week leading into it. I usually kind of say the Sunday going into the BFCM, like Sunday going to Thanksgiving week, is like when I'm like, all right, we're gonna cool off. We're gonna make sure everything's like stable by then. So
yeah.
test early, test often is my personal take. Andrew, you agree?
I mean, I was just gonna say like we're doing that right now, which is kind of putting some concrete around what our vendor stack looks like right now. Like I think we feel good about all the tests that we've run up to now, but I think now, I mean, on the list building side and like where OpenSend comes in, like it's never too early. That's separate from sort of like what happens on the site, where I don't think those puzzle pieces we're trying to experiment as much, in the week before.
Totally.
Bill, any additional thoughts on testing? Even especially like offer testing. Like, when's your cutoff?
I mean, I think in general, you know, every company I've ever worked with, marketing operations is a major choke point. If I'm going to merchandise, create a discount code, create bundles, create life cycle, create ad assets, targeting, traffic, channel mix, whatever. So I think really getting that muscle, in really good shape prior. And then, yeah, I think unfortunately for anyone who sells B2B SaaS e-commerce software, y'all know that you don't sell much, pretty much starting now till the end of the year. So good time to work on
Yeah,
your roadmap, everyone. But the other thing though is for companies who are out there, you can get a lot of attention from someone who's providing new tools. So be like, yeah, we'll get you up and running because it really does cool off in terms of their sales cycle. And a lot of to survive in B2B SaaS these days, the customer success and the assistance that you get is key. Um, and so, I think it's a lot more risky, right, to start be modifying your MarTech stack now. But if you have one big missing piece you're dying to, have a good conversation with one of your potential partners and see if they can help you through it.
Totally. So we have a question from Macy. So around shipping charges and the fact that the fees are increasing the closer we get to Black Friday, are you turning those to the customers? Are you giving more free shipping, hiring the threshold as you get closer to Black Friday, or how would you act upon it?
yeah. I mean, for shipping specifically, like I know we've experimented with a few things there. I kind of I won't speak to. I don't think we've nailed that yet, so I kind of won't speak to classic strategy exactly. But I think for us, really like the one thing that maybe we'll talk more about is also using this as a way to lock in members, and for us that means our insider program. And safe to say we're much more generous there with shipping than, and I think if we can use that as a lever to pull, especially during this period, and sort of there's many other reasons to do it that we can talk about, but I think for shipping, that is one of the reasons that we'll try to give that out, is to kind of make it clear that this is a long-term relationship that they're building with us, and our insider program is a massive focal point during the FCM.
Yeah,
Totally.
I think the challenge is Amazon has set the standard for shipping, right? There's 140 million households in the US, and I think the last stat I saw, Amazon Prime membership's about 189,000. And shipping thresholds that are easy to overcome. I think one of the things when you think about shipping thresholds, if you set, if you have an average, $25 basket and you're like free shipping at 75, that might be a bit much. It's like really ideally if you can cross sell into another product to give free shipping, that's great. Again, depends on your SKU mix, depends on your shipping costs. It's also another way, you're giving up margin, but it may be worthwhile as a strategy in BFCM because, what's the consumer's choices in terms of where they're buying and what they're paying for shipping. And it's not a horrible way to give up margin. Really depends on your business and your shipping costs.
Yeah.
I used to run a nine-figure sub company that was not Dr. Squatch. Those exist, by the way. One of the craziest tests I ever ran was like 2 months before. It was like August, I think. We went from offering free shipping at like $65 or over to all orders, like just removing free shipping entirely, except for like special promo periods, or if you subscribe to, certain kind of bundles, and there was like no impact to conversion rate, and I was like, oh man, we just got like all this margin back because soap is pretty dense, it's like heavy to ship. Just run like your shipping analysis, actually see what shipping is costing you. That'll help you kind of set your parameters on how much you can go, how much margin you can actually give up there. And then one of the things that I think both Dollar Shave and True Classic especially, this is because I spend so much time funnel hacking the True Classic website,
Yeah.
like looking at like the offers that are being run. Like you get really creative offers, and like you can kind of bake in some of the shipping costs, and building that perceived value. So be mindful of your shipping margins, and then just as this has been said like 15 times already by these guys, like just think about the experience your customer should get. And it is a holiday period. People are looking for deals. People do, make a decision between this brand is giving you free shipping versus not. So bake that in, but don't be afraid to charge a bit for shipping if you need to, if your business requires it. Like especially if you sell like heavy stuff.
Yeah, definitely have a data-driven analysis of that for sure. Um, through some experimentation with shipping costs and thresholds, that's key. And also, different audiences have different sensitivities to those things for sure.
Awesome. Do you want to dive into some landing page tactics, Sanjay?
Yeah. First of all, can you hear me? I know Brian said that he can't. Can you all hear me? Okay.
We can hear you. Yep,
Okay.
Good on my
Cool. All
side.
right.
loud and clear.
Um,
Awesome.
so landing page tactics. I mean, my big thing is like, okay, if you're not running traffic to like dedicated like landing pages, you should obviously, and I'm contractually obligated to like make that claim. But also that has been the crux of my career, and that's where the biggest unlocks have existed. Um, Sending directly to PDP like works great if you're doing apparel or like jewelry, where it's like
Yeah.
I just want this thing. But if you're running offers, if you're trying to test ways to like increase AOV, you should have a dedicated landing page. Andrew, I'm sure I'm not saying that like are the person
Yeah. Yeah.
responsible for this, but I would love to hear like how your team kind of thinks about the kind of landing pages in general.
I think we test our landing pages so frequently. And I think it really depends about where the traffic is coming from. I think like if you can figure out like, especially if you can figure out any sort of expected like AOV based on traffic source and sort of tailor the landing page like accordingly, where if you think that this traffic is driving a one item purchase or a one product purchase, like go straight to the PDP. But if you have some reason to believe that this is more of like a discovery experience, like make it very clear that what we're doing is we're bundling, we're selling packs, and I think sort of trying to dictate like the landing page based off of what the user is coming to the site for. Um, but again, like we'll still have tests running for PDPs and things like that, just because everything changes very quickly there.
Yeah. The biggest like concept that I've been kind of talking about recently is funnel congruency. So making sure that every piece of your funnel matches, like the messaging in your ad matches the landing page you go to. And that goes kind of like past that to like your post-purchase segmentation. A really like concrete example: you sell skincare, you have products that can help people in the 40 plus women category, and then like maybe you have products that can help Gen Z guys. If those ads should not like kind of crisscross into different funnels, right? So the ad that a 40-year-old woman's going to see for your product should have the landing page content should be tailored to her, not just the imagery, but also the copy, like the way the offer is structured. Maybe they can
Yeah.
afford a higher AOV, like all of these sorts of things. Like, I think the funnel congruency thing is like the biggest concept. And Bill, I'm sure this is something that you guys have been kind of you become like masters at over the course of several years, and this is something that is second nature to you. Do you have any like fun stories about bringing this to life?
Well, I mean, I think the key, like you hit on it already, is wherever the traffic source, whatever, however I'm driving traffic, whatever the offer is, consistency there. If you're selling on value prop, you're selling on price, you're selling on selection, you're selling on, top reviews, whatever. A number one is consistency across, your ad sets, across your channels, across your site visitor traffic. And I think everyone knows you never stop optimizing. And also looking at your full conversion funnel. When I'm looking at PDPs, I'm looking at add to cart rate, right? If I'm cross selling, how well am I cross selling? Why some offers will or won't cross sell well? And then, how your checkout success rate. One of the places where I've seen consistently true incremental uplift is increasing the performance of your cart. Now, kind of depends if you're small, you're, Shopify, you may or may not have done anything. Some people are adding other third-party tools to like add on cross-sell, upsell optimization. But in general, like if people fail through the cart, it's quite often they'll go off looking somewhere else. I mean, you can capture them in retargeting. And I think someone asked something about like what are the top five tools. I'll talk about one specifically, like whether it's Hotjar or anyone who's doing session recording. Um, you learn it's anecdotal, right? It's not full quant. It's a little bit of qual. But if you can you can establish funnels and you can watch success through funnels. And I've never done that without observing something I would not have learned by looking at data. And so session recording tools are key. Full story. We use full story at Dollar Shave. Super helpful.
Microsoft Clarity is free if you're, I know some of these other tools give you additional features that the basic ones don't, but at the very least, Microsoft Clarity is free.
Yeah. And see where you're getting drop off. Do you have a sticking point? Like, is it not clear to add something to get a threshold? Like, if I'm bundling on the fly, whatever, is the discounting clear? Is someone having trouble logging in? Shopify putting credit card error handling, all
Right.
that kind of stuff. That stuff is key.
Cool. So, what is an AI use case that it's again a must have or something that didn't pan out?
That didn't pan out, or that.
Yeah, I mean you can start with something that must have, and then something else that was more a myth than actual than something that could provide actual ROI.
Yeah, I mean, for all of this stuff here, and this is now where I'm spending a lot of time, is like it hasn't panned out yet. And I think that's partially because we're still on this learning journey. But like my role right now is really like AI and automation, which I sort of joke about as like AI and APIs. And I think on the API side, like the the thing, well, this is what's working really well right now is actually automating workflows. Um, this is less about the visitor and more internal to the business, but I think really tight reporting using APIs is like much much easier to set up, and I think for BFCM, like hourly reporting, like straight coming from APIs, whether it's on like the Klaviyo side, on the Shopify side. I think there's a lot there that brands should be setting up right now. I think like what hasn't panned out, or what we're still tweaking, is really on like the creative side.
Right.
Just because like I think it's still in the vast majority of cases, like we're finding better success with the creative that we especially went out and created a photo shoot around. But I think like the ability to do the internal testing of like image duplication, copywriting, I think AI actually is working in some cases there better than we expected, but it is a lot of like tweaking and iterating. So I think like the idea that like you'll one shot something and it'll be your best performing ad is probably unlikely, but using it as a way to have a human in the loop throughout the testing process with AI is, I still think, like the way that people should be spending their time.
And any tool you recommend, Andrew, for that? I mean, we know Icon, we know a few others, but anything you?
I mean, honestly, ChatGPT. Like, I
Okay.
think just as like a place where you spend your time, I think people are sort of building that behavior already. And so like we've tried a bunch of the specific marketing tools, but like I tell my team and we tell sort of everyone at the organization, like have ChatGPT open like at all times.
24/7.
Yeah. So like really that's the big one. There are others that we can come back to, but
And have you experimented anything around like videos, UGC, VO3, nano-banana, like any of these new tools coming out?
yeah, I mean, nano-banana when it came out, I thought was like mind-blowing. But it's crazy how short the time window is where like you're amazed by something because now Sora is
Yeah,
out and it's like at parity or it's better in some cases. So like the window of where you're like amazed to all of a sudden you're like disappointed that something wasn't, what was impossible 2 weeks ago is now not good enough. But again, like that's much more on the generative like idea generation more so than the final asset generation. And
makes
it's like
sense.
it's like this
I'll
testing.
actually I'll push back on that a little bit. My thing. So one of the things that I always hear from people is like, "Yo, what's like the best landing page that's working? What's the best offer that's working?" Then I go do some research for their thing. And oftentimes, I will give people a template
Yeah,
of the best landing page that's working for a specific offer type, or even trying to fit a new offer into something. And what's missing is not just like applying the brand styles to that particular template, but it's actually the imagery specifically that makes that landing page template pop. And so what we've been doing, we're trying to figure out how to like integrate Nano Banana into our product.
yeah,
But what I've been telling people is uh, take the original, like the inspiration websites, take that, download their picture that they use in that section, upload your product, and just have it swap it out. And so you've got like a photo shoot. And so, I mean, I do think like the best landing pages, you have to go kind of plan out the photo shoot still. We're not like perfect. You can't, to your point, you can't one shot it yet. But you can kind of speed up a lot of like some of these new tests without having to go do a full photo shoot with stuff like Nano Banana.
yeah.
And
Especially
then,
for smaller brands, like
yeah,
for small brands that are resource constrained, like 100%, you can get 99% of the way there almost, which
Totally.
is amazing.
Yeah, and
and
the
also,
amount of optimization is obviously diminishing, right? So
yeah.
in a true class, you're trying to squeeze
Yeah,
the last few percentage point to get over 90%. Well, obviously a good 70, 80%. It's planning for who's trying to get there.
The other really, and this is I'm going to go on the record by saying don't do this. I am a gray hat marketer sometimes in my side projects, and I try to push the boundaries of things. So do not do this. But one thing that I have supposedly, hypothetically, have tested is like YouTube pre-roll ads. You can run ads on specific videos or like specific channels. And so what I've been able to do is like take a screenshot of someone's profile, have NanoBand create like a likeness, a character likeness, and use that as a VO3 character and like put it in my own script to run to my own traffic. That's a gray hat thing. Maybe a little black hat. Don't do that. But what that did teach me is like, okay, like kind of some of these workflows that are possible. My point is very simply go play with these tools, go figure out what the boundaries are. I think if you understand like what they can do, kind of figure out what you can do with them in a compliant way.
I can chime in on AI personalization too. I think again, this will be a shameless plug. I'm an advisor to Revamp. But a lot, someone earlier in the chat asked about segmenting flows. And, if I take a Dollar Shave Club scenario, there's like this really obvious binary where I have an active subscriber, right? I don't want them to buy a new starter kit. I want them to add stuff to their box versus like a new customer. But, all of the data that's available, through Shopify and Klaviyo gives you a ton of options. But it also, like, when I'm creating subsegments and flows, I'm basically, for the most part, stacking rules, right?
Yeah.
So if I have 10,000 people qualify into a flow, I'm like new versus this versus has bought in this day, has not bought that, has done this, has done that. And by the time I get to the bottom of this like branched out flow, I basically subsegmented to a much smaller number, which is essentially anti-scale. And I had met the revamp guys right before I left at Dollar Shave. And when I heard the pitch, I was like, oh my God, this is how I imagine it ought to be. And it's a very good use of AI to basically look at whoever qualifies into a segment, how do we figure out how to adjust their cadence, offer, content, et cetera, based on all the variables available. Klaviyo has done a really good job of letting you attach first party data, Shopify data, browse data, any data you have. It's basically like the era of paying a lot of money for CDP is over, right? It's like in my CRM, I can attach all the relevant information, but then in terms of actioning it, if I have to sort of, create rules based sort of heuristics and sub segments versus can I get some automation that's looking at the full context, stays context aware and up to date in real time, and then can shift. It's not just about the copy I put into an email when I send. So if you have an abandoned flow, depending on what type of product you sell, typically high AOV, I'll have a longer window. Low AOV, I'll have a shorter. Dollar Shave, if you abandon in the cart, I have about 5 days and 4 emails to try and get you to purchase before that becomes not very effective. And typically in your flows, you're setting those up as rules and content, what you browse less. If the user goes and visits a new site, it doesn't stay context aware, etc. And so there's tools like Revamp that'll do personalization at scale and actually kind of adjust your flow cadence and content on the fly based on user behavior. It's a great example. And I think in 2 years, the playing field in terms of what everyone has available in terms of sophistication will be pretty level. It's going to basically be NASCAR. For the last 20 years, I've been in this game since '98. And it's like, okay, who has the best operations, best tech, best insights, best data? How do I stay ahead of my competition, ahead of where I acquire customers? And it's like, y'all up against Meta's AI. You ain't gonna
Yeah.
win, son. But in a couple years, our AI is gonna be as good as their AI. And then the big question is like, what do you actually have that's proprietary to your brand? And I always go back to these 5 things. You have your brand voice, your brand promise. You have your products. You have the first party data you collect on users, distribution, products, et cetera, pricing, whatever. Then you have your actual users themselves, right? And the community around that. Like if you think about Nike, right? Nike's brand, Nike's asset is about the people who are out there wearing Nike and how they basically, whether they're actively promoting or not. And then your distribution channels, right? What unfair advantages do you have in your distribution channels, especially since a lot of these brands are omni? So like those are the 5 proprietary assets we have as brands. We rent everything else. We rent our e-commerce website from Shopify. We rent our ESP. We rent eyeballs from Meta. And so when you're building something durable, think about those 5 things and how you're really actioning on those 5 things via your MarTech stack and your strategies.
Yeah. By the way, we haven't tested Revamp yet. I've talked to those guys a bunch, but I do think what they're doing is very cool. So like all of that inside of the lifecycle journey and inside of flows, I think is a massive opportunity. I think it's still like somewhat early there, but I mean, I know they're killing it. I think like it's interesting to see what that will turn into, because I think all of so much is up in the air right now for like what does a good email flow look like in the world of AI.
And Andrew, one thing that I showed you a few weeks ago that we recently launched our persona product in order to enable that type of customization. We believe that in the near future, just going to be a matter of knowing more about your existing customers, things like marital status, where they live, how old are they, gender, and all these sorts of things in order to be able to turn around the voice, the background of the email, and kind of like ultimately offering and the type of products that you're presenting to them in order to be able to give them an offer that it's more tailored to them in
Yeah,
tone, product types, and offers and all these sorts of stuff. And yeah, I mean, the belief is that the more we're gonna go on, it's good AI is good data, and if you're feeding good data into the right AI tools, so you'll be able to automate a lot of stuff and resonate a lot more with the receivers because they are gonna feel more like it's for them rather than it's for everybody.
yeah, it'll just be like hyper optimized on the propensity analysis side. Like there will be some sort of score associated with every action, and then I think back to what you're saying, like a lot of that will end up being like, all right, well then is email the right channel? And I think it's like the channel like branches that I think get more interesting, which is like, came in through Meta, ended up in a welcome flow, but now we're going to go back to retargeting because of all of the data that we're getting from these sources. So like that journey is much more than just sort of inside of the channel itself, and sort of the channels will end up marrying together.
Yeah, that's right. And one more thing I wanted to ask you guys. So always around LLMs, agents, and shopping agents, and
Yeah.
all these new things we're seeing approaching the market, right? How real and how far are we from actually having consumers do not go onto Shopify sites anymore, just sending their agents to shop for them, right? Because ultimately that's going to be a very meaningful loss of signal. And then I guess it's going to be our job to tell you whose agent is who, right? And we're working on that, but because we're not there yet. Like, how do you feel? How big of a threat you believe that's really going to be for merchants to have agents, more agents on their side than actual humans that they can track and then retarget?
Yeah, I have so many thoughts on this. Like on the like where is it helpful, and like where is it hurtful? I think there's the two different things that people are talking a lot about and potentially like conflating, which is like agentic commerce, and then everything around what is called either like AEO or GEO, which is like how likely are you to show up in the prompt or in the
Right.
results of a certain prompt. Um, I think what like I get more excited about is actually sort of someone who already knows about True Classic, especially because like it is cool. Like we're seeing more and more sales and conversions and traffic coming every week through ChatGPT. But for the most part, like I think if you can actually help someone decide to purchase True Classic who maybe already has it in their mind, I think there will be things on the agentic side there. Like if you saw yesterday, ChatGPT announced sort of this new agent inside of apps where you could sort of type in like at Expedia, go search for this, or at Zillow, go do all of these things for
Yep.
me. I sort of see the world where you can sort of like at True Classic, and like we're an app. Like you can log into trueclassic.com with Shopify, and it has all this context about you and about us. And so how do we actually create the True Classic agent experience that is sort of an assistant to you on your journey, and maybe you have to go to the site, or maybe you don't. I think it'll be different modes or modalities of where you're at. Eventually, like I assume it will be cannibalistic or substitutive to some shopping, but for the short term, I would think about it should be a tool that you help people shop the same way that if you had a chatbot on your site, what would that chatbot do? Now that chatbot is just like one layer removed from your site. You can get to the True Classic chatbot inside of ChatGPT. There's all of these things there, but that's the way I'm thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I think that this year is the last year that we'll remember as sort of normal. I think Adobe released some research that said BFCM, uh, you know, agentic AI and query volume using LLMs for shopping. I think they're expecting up 520% year over year last year. And basically, like the world is flat right now, and it'll be round next year. And I think the landscape's moving super
Yes.
duper fast. By the way, oh, go ahead.
Well, just one thing on that. Like, I don't think who knows what will happen in whatever it is 6 weeks. But if you think about Sam Altman or whatever his incentives are, like he cares a lot about the orders being placed through ChatGPT going up. And right now, people have only seen like, oh, you can maybe place an order. But what happens when like they get involved in actually offering discounts or the offers inside of that experience too? And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually try to come up with something cool for this BFCM. So that's like my one hot take is potentially expect something that is like BFCM specific inside of ChatGPT.
The October surprise. The interesting thing too on agentic commerce is what happens to first party data. Sanjay, there was a couple things I wanted to throw in, by the way, that I think most people don't talk about on BFCM. Um,
Let's hear it.
so one, when we talk about our offers and our offer muscle and getting that all warmed up and prepped, and I talked about warming up the life cycle, talking about, hey, we got 12 days of whatever coming up. And one of the things, again, in my experience, very disproportionate people buying for themselves, waiting for discounts to purchase for themselves in this period. And a really good time to warm up your offer and to see how it's converting is 11/11, Singles Day, which is, a Chinese culture is like, okay, we're going to celebrate my autonomy, my independence, I'm going to treat myself. And so it's a really good way to, roll out your offers. It's a good call to action. It's super fun and exciting, and it's not as noisy as the rest. But you can hone in on your landing page ad, experience, offer experience to see like what's really cranking up. And then the other thing I'll tell everyone is gift guides. The best organic traffic, the best
Yep.
earned media, a little bit of PR. And then when you think about gift guides, right, you'll have GQ, gifts for men, something, gifts for women, gifts under 30, gifts over 50, gifts for under the tree, last minute gifts, stocking stuffers, whatever. So whatever category you're in, and as many of those sort of gift guide things that you can fit in, you could even, create your own gift guide page. Hey, gifts for him, gifts for her, gifts under 30, gifts whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I love what Andrew said earlier too about like I'm buying a gift and I get a BOGO for me. That's great. And the shipping cutoff dates. And if you can't make a shipping cutoff date, can you actually do a follow-up email that someone could actually be like, oh, I was too late and here's your orders on its way. Could you do something they could print out that looks a little bit better than like, hey, sorry, it'll be here. And then the other thing I'll mention too is, typically December 25th to January 1, there's a huge trough. Um, you got to decide if you want to fight momentum on that or not. In general, I don't think it's a bad idea to leave it alone because there's also the January spike. So a lot of the traffic, right? The traffic goes up, the abandons, the flows, whatever go up. I can actually grow my list significantly in this period. And then that creates a great opportunity for January to start off strong. And somebody asked about budgets in October. When do you ramp them up? And I think the key on that is, the traffic and the intent, purchase intent is going to go up in November. If you're running at a certain budget, if I'm running 500,000 on Meta and I've been doing that all, worked up to that all year, created all my efficiencies, typically if I spend another 100K on Meta, that the return on that next 100K is going to be limited. Everyone, it's a scarce resource marketplace. So you hit this point where your marginal return on incremental investment goes down to like almost zero. And so I think that's really like for, how well do you understand, your, presence in Meta and some of your other channels. And then you don't have to ramp up the spend beyond something that's unnatural. You're just it'll naturally ramp up to catch the traffic that comes from BFCM.
Totally. Guys, one very, very last curveballs. How afraid are you about iOS 26?
I mean, iOS 18
Yeah.
was damaging. I'm not gonna lie. inbox prioritization and categorization. Google's still advancing on that. Look at where you're appearing in inboxes, and then also SMS to the rescue, bro.
Totally.
Uh,
I'm
And even
gonna
that's
put a
changing, by the way,
link.
right? Unknown senders and SMS is problematic. And then actually, Attentive released a really good article on what they do to get your primary inbox for SMS to perform well.
Yep. Yeah, because the biggest challenge is going to be that all the various Meta, Google, Microsoft Click IDs are going to be automatically strapped out, right? And I put a link in the chat for anybody from the audience that want to learn more. We've created this survival kit with the Fuel the team around things that you can do in order to essentially be able to fight against iOS 26, which we believe it's going to be as tricky as iOS 14 at the end of the
yeah.
day. So that it's going to be necessary for brands to, find ways to subsidize the data loss and the signal loss. And in here there are a few tactics per what we expect, and then obviously we'll know more as soon as it's going to be in full effect.
Gentlemen,
Awesome.
one last thing to wrap us up. For the big freaky cash machine, what's the one thing people should leave with? The one thing you really want to hammer home, regardless if people are making 100K this year, 100 million this year in their business. What's the one thing you want to leave them with? Andrew, I'll kick it off with you first.
Yeah, but we didn't touch on this much, so maybe I'll just use it. Here's an example, but like I mentioned earlier, like it's a sustained period of really high intent sales, and actually, like I think post purchase is maybe overlooked as one of those things where like just because someone purchased a true classic tea on the first day, actually like they're still making other purchase decisions, and I think you can continue to be very aggressive in that post purchase window throughout the entire period. So like it is much more than sort of the entrance to BFCM, and it's really the entire period of continuous higher intent purchases. And if you can use the post purchase flow or like the confirmation page, anything where you can sort of make it easier to say, oh yeah, I'll add one more, I'll add two more. Like I think those things are actually what end up moving the needle quite a bit.
Yeah, I think all brands should think about what's the next purchase, for your existing customer. What's the next thing you're most likely to purchase, and how do you merchandise that to them? Then the other thing, small or large, yeah, like get in those gift guides. We should publish the ultimate gift guide to gift guides and see how many categories you can fit in. And if you have PR, if you don't have PR, find your way to get in front of people who are publishing gift guides. It's pretty easy to see, and who's done it. And that's for Scrappy, no cost, and the amount of traffic you can drive by getting pickup in a big gift guide is unreal. It's like a very good hack. It's not guaranteed, but you got to give it a shot.
And LLMs love gift guides, right? Like
Yeah.
place
Oh
it
yeah.
on Reddit, place it, on all those places where they can go and fetch it. And yeah, and people are going to be prompted. Amazing, guys.
Incredible.
We're out of time. Thank you so much to both of you for being our guests and for all the wisdom you have been able to share. And until next time, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for
My
joining us. We'll
pleasure.
make sure to get the recording out soon, and we'll be reaching out to say hello. But Bill, Andrew, you guys are legends. We got to do this again soon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.